Hello, everybody.
Hi, Molly.
Hi, Muggsy. How are you?
Good. Mazel tov.
We did it. We're back. Hi, everybody.
We
Nice
did
to
it.
see you all.
Hi, Gem.
Oh, Gem's got cut off. Let's just add her back. Yeah, I've been really looking forward to this one. We've had a couple of weeks off. I was away. So yeah, it's really, really good to be back. How you doing, Gem? Are you here?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, very good.
I thought I wasn't going to make it then for a second. It just chucked me out. I was like, no. Yeah, welcome everybody. Episode 28, Cult Special. Hi, Mugsy. How you doing?
Good.
Good.
It's freaking hot.
It's hot here as well, but I'm sure not as hot as where you guys are. But yeah, wonderful to be back. It feels like a long time. Our last episode was 3 weeks ago now, so it's great to have you all here, and it's going to be an interesting one tonight. So, well, what should we start with then? Chaos. I mean, we are living in a world of chaos, I suppose, at the moment. If people look at the news and sort of what's going on with COVID and the new war and everything, but really, if concentrating on things like that, we're never going to find sort of peace. And there's lots of different situations, whether it's work, whether it's family, friendships, and they can be chaotic. But if we can find a way of being peaceful within those situations, then life becomes a lot more simple, doesn't it? So.
Yeah, it's an interesting subject because chaos always exists. I think chaos is part of the nature of the duality of. I think that we're always going to, it's always going to be part of life. There's no way it can't be. It's created through us. You have people in your life that I'm sure are chaotic. We all know those kinds of people that always seem to bring the chaos, and then there's more peaceful people, but they will still experience chaos in their life. So it's learning to be graceful in life through these chaotic times that we experience. And it's wonderful when it's peaceful, when things are going well, when we're going through a time of equilibrium in our lives. But we all know that doesn't last, and chaos will always appear. So it's about getting to know ourselves better so that we can really glide through those times with more ease, with less resistance, and with more understanding. So I think for me, that's the direction that we're going to look in tonight. We're not going to cure the world of chaos, but we can come back to ourselves and an understanding of the self that allows us to have as much peace as possible during those times. Would that make sense to you, Jem?
Yeah, it does totally. And it's so interesting because I was thinking about this subject sort of over the last few days. And I had a real moment and I realized sort of what I'd been doing for so many years. I was in the car and I was in a traffic jam. I wasn't in a rush. And I found myself saying, oh, for God's sake, it was something like, I'm having a meltdown or something. And I realized actually that's a word that I used to use a lot. So even if I was in a rush or something was going on, my friend would call and I'd say, oh, I can't talk now, I'm having a meltdown. Or I can't talk, I'm having a nightmare. And I'd use those words a lot. And thinking about it now, I nearly went to say it earlier and there was nothing wrong. There was nothing going on. And I said, hang on a sec, you're not having a meltdown or a nightmare. There's literally nothing going on. And I realized all of those years or whatever, these situations that maybe weren't that stressful, I was automatically labeling them as something quite bad. And it's really had a big effect on me the last couple of days because twice I've caught myself out. And yeah, it's really surprised me actually, because the labels that you give things, they're pretty much bullshit. But it's been huge actually. So
Yeah.
Well, if I could just jump in on this, I feel like we all get caught in this state of mind, and chaos may not be known to us until someone or something or some event points that out to us. And we could be living in chaos and be so involved that you may or may not even know. So that's one side. The other side is, you know, you don't realize, we tend to not realize what we're getting into at certain times. And we could be the most level headed, level minded, level person, and you get yourself into a situation where you lose yourself because we are so involved and we love and we like and we care so much that it changes who you are for either that moment or you get lost in it. So there's these potentials that we just don't know how to get out of it because we're in it for so long. That's one. And then you actually change how you are due to the circumstances that you're in, even though that if you were to step back and you watch the situation, it would be like, why is this person acting this way? And then why is this person acting back this way? But then we get involved and we could possibly get lost in that situation too.
Yeah, I mean, there's chaos is everywhere, so it's always easy to kind of get caught up in it. I find that the more you have a deeper understanding of who you are, the less that happens. It will still happen, but it's we live in the water of our thinking. It's like a fish doesn't know it's in water. If you go say to a fish, "Oh, you live in water," they go, "What water?" It's just where they live, and where we live is in our heads. We live in the reality created by thought, and sometimes we're going to get really caught up because that thought is going to really look like it has meaning to the outside world. So we're going to really get attached to the outside world and how we want something to be. And I think when we do that, that's when, if that creates chaos, then that's the direction that we're going to go in until we notice that that's what we're doing. But I do think the more we understand the nature of mind, the more we understand that it's always thought, the less likely we are to stay for very long in that chaos. We bounce out of it quickly because ultimately the chaos has to be us if we're in it, which is really interesting because, you could get somebody that's completely peaceful, and if they could be in a chaotic situation, but really, really keep their peace. Those people, they're really calm under pressure. You really want them if there's a bad situation, they'll still stay really calm. And there's other people that won't, that will get really caught up and really flustered. Well, the only difference between those people is their thinking. So that's the potential for us too, that at times we can clearly get caught up in the chaos. But actually, a lot of the time, if we understand we're coming from thought, we could be in a really chaotic situation and remain completely zen. Now, I experience both. Sometimes I get caught up, sometimes I stay very zen. But again, what I do understand is it's always me. Now, that's the beauty of this, is that that's the light that we're finding in this chaos. It's not an outside light. It's not something outside of us. It's waking up to who we are. It's waking up to that there's this light within us, and that light is peace. And when we understand that that's our true nature, we can kind of glide through gracefully any situation that's presented to us. Does that mean we always will? Absolutely not, because sometimes thought is something that we're going to get caught in. Reality is going to look like it's really true and it's really affecting us. We're going to react to that instead of respond. And in that moment, we're going to get caught. And that's okay too, because what we're not saying here is that, not saying that we're always going to have to find this perfect state of mind and always be zen and always show up with peace. We're going to show up as we show up because we're human. So of course, I could be in this understanding for 50 years, and I know I would still have moments of being caught up in my own thinking. But as soon as I see it's my thinking and not the world, I will calm down. That's what we're pointing to here. It's like it's within you to always have peace. Now, whether you see that peace or not is a different matter. But knowing that its potential is there makes everything much easier to go through. Okay. So, what I've found is that I tend not to gravitate too much towards the chaos. The chaos doesn't appeal to me very much, but I have friends that, they live in chaos all the time. I see it, but that's the water that they swim in, and for whatever reason, that's the life that they have, and they seem to be magnetized towards, and that's what's really interesting. It's always a reflection of who we are. And the beauty of that is that it's always available for change, because we can always see things differently. So we're always looking through the lens of our own thinking. So does that make sense, Muggsy, to what you were saying?
It does. And I think everybody in this room and everyone I know, and I'm sure everybody you know, we get so lost in some of these situations. What I think I would love to hear from both of you is, what are the steps, and what are the anchors that we can practice in our lives, that when we fall into scenarios where we feel like it's too deep and we're too involved and we're so emotional and we can't seem to get out of that emotion, how do we step back? And that's always the key to try to get out of a situation, because once you get heated and you want to be right, you think you want to be right. You think you want to prove something, and you think you want to win an argument, even though you know that that argument is not going to go anywhere, because the other person or persons are thinking the same thing, right? So if the three of us, Molly and Jem, we're arguing a certain point, and we're all coming from three different points, at some point, no one's going to hear anybody, right? Words are just words. Written words are just words. Words coming out of your mouth could just be words. They're just noise. And this is where we all get caught in these battles, and these. It's so emotional. We get so tied into these situations, and I think it's important that we try to, figure out ways that we can step out of these situations, and have it for, something to learn for the rest of your life, that hey, this is the same thing as this. Let's step away. Let's think about this. That's always the hardest part that I see myself and others get into.
Yeah, I totally agree, because what you're talking about is when the ego gets hold, when that separation really believes it's right, that ego really believes its own thinking, and the ego, it defends itself. It needs to be right. It feels insecure if it's not correct. So it's going to fight its battle, no matter what. That, when we're caught in that energy, when we're caught in that mindset, that's just the direction it's going to go in. So actually, in that moment, is there anything that can make a difference? Well, the only thing that's going to make a difference in that moment is new thinking. And that new thinking will be to step out of it and to see that, okay, I'm caught up here. This is me. This is me applying my beliefs and trying to get someone to think the same way as I do, which is never going to happen, because we all have our own thinking. And just to step back. So it's not a case of there's this A, B, or C that you can do, because once you're lost in that thinking, That thinking has to calm down and new thought has to come in for you to see it differently. You know, there's no practice in the world that's actually going to make that much difference in that moment. The practice that makes a difference is this understanding. It's listening to these. It's reading books on what we teach, which is called the 3 principles. It's listening to the podcasts that we host and that other people host, and starting to understand the mind and the nature of the ego. Starting to understand that there are 7.5 billion separate realities on this planet. Each of us has our own thought system. Each of us will see things differently. And the fact that how other people see things isn't personal. It's not detrimental to how you see them. It's just how they see them. So what happens when you really, really begin to explore and inquire into the direction that Gem and I are pointing to in Unminding, what starts to be revealed is that actually everybody's coming from this separate reality, this personal thinking, and everybody's making it up. Okay, so what looks one way to one person will look completely different to another, and we start to come before the ideas of wrong and right. We start to come before the ideas of we need them to think like we do. We begin to see that people can only see what they see via their thought system. And to us, they may be completely lost and maybe have completely got it wrong. But it's not going to look like that to them. And it's certainly not going to look like that to them when they're in their ego. So it's almost as if you kind of have the realization that you're fighting a losing battle because there's no winners there. And there's also the realization of, wow, like my thought is creating my reality. Their thinking is creating their reality. There isn't a right or a wrong. There just simply is experience, okay? So from their experience and all of their conditioning and all of the life that they've had and all of their thinking and all of their opinions have created their argument. But that's true for us too. So that allows us to step back for a moment and start to see through it a little bit, start to see it a bit differently, start to loosen it up so it doesn't become quite so fixed. You know, I can get it too. And it's like the moment I see what's really happening is I just step out of it. I just go, oh, well, that there is absolutely no point in me being in that dialogue. That's somebody else's thinking. That's my thinking. They're clearly opposing. I will allow them theirs. They can allow me mine, and we can carry on. We can still be the best of friends and have completely opposite views, because ultimately where we connect is the place before we have those ideas, before we have those views, before we have those beliefs. That's the truth of who we all are, who we all are. It appears as 7.5 billion separate realities. In truth, it's one shared being. There's one energy that has created all of that. So when we begin to see that, we can just calm down. We just see our own thinking. So it isn't about a tool or an exercise or doing something or making the other person think and see like we do. It's about stepping back and seeing the observer, observing the self, seeing what we're doing, bringing it back to us. Because as soon as we do that and we see that we're caught up in the noise of our thinking, we come back home. And when we come back home, we step away and resolution is found. Because resolution isn't found in two egos butting heads. Resolution is found when that drops away, when we come back more into our humility, when we come back more into our shared being. That for me is where we would need to look.
It's so interesting that you guys, well, you're talking about this, because I don't know what's going on at the moment, but I'm having so many penny drop moments. Like, Molls, did you have a point in your journey where you sort of just kept getting them and you're like, wow, okay, this is insane?
Yeah, and still occasionally can have that, because I think it's an infinite understanding, and we have infinite beliefs that need to be seen through. So yeah, I do get where you're coming from.
Because this similar thing happened to me yesterday. So, Molls, you'll know who I'm talking about, but I was sort of having a semi heated discussion with someone, and it was about the most stupidest thing. I'm not even going to bother mentioning it, but I knew that I was 100% right because it's a fact, okay? And the person was adamant that they were right. And sometimes is probably the only person I have these sort of discussions with, and he always has to be right about everything. I don't really say that I know something's true unless I 100% know. So I knew, and I bit back and I said, well, no, I 100% know this because I actually used to do it for a job, and I 100% know that my argument was correct. And he was like, oh, no, because it's this way, da da da. And I just thought to myself, right, I'm not going to be able to convince him that I'm right. What do I want out of this situation? I want to feel happy and not to have this sort of confrontation. He wants to know that he is right. It doesn't matter whether whoever's right about the actual fact. That is gone out the window now because the fact doesn't matter. All anyone wants to do is prove that they're right. So I just said, actually, you are right. I've just remembered I've got that completely wrong. And it was finished. And I've never done that with him before. And I'm going to do it all the time now. And it was brilliant. And it was like, it really doesn't matter that I was right, because it's not about the thing. You can get into these arguments to try and prove something, and you lose sight. And it was just really wonderful because the whole situation that could have been quite stressful, it just went away. And I was lying because I said, no, you are right. But I just thought, what are we trying to achieve here? What am I trying to achieve? Am I trying to make him believe something, or do I just want peace around? So yeah, that's what I did yesterday to sort of diffuse something. And I don't know whether that's the right or wrong thing to do, but I certainly before would have argued my point. I really would have argued it, but it was great to just have a chilled out night and not worry about things like that. So yeah, it's a totally different approach, and I'm not sure how good it is to tell someone that they're right about a fact that they're definitely wrong about, but it saves me a lot of hassle. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I love it. And also it doesn't matter. It doesn't. And also, like, are you really right? We don't, you know, you think you are,
Molls, let's
but
not get into this right now, okay? I'll send you a screenshot later and prove it to you, okay?
but it's like, what's the thing that needs to be right? It's the ego. And so what's beautiful about what you've just said is that your ego just didn't need to go there. You went there for a bit, and then it was like, oh, what's the point? Let that go. Let us both be right. Who cares? You know, so that's the beauty in that. It's to me, that's like the evolution of Gem is she's, you know, that's an insight. That's seeing things differently. Because, you know, so you'd have been in misery the whole evening trying to prove a point that he wouldn't have listened to. You actually gave yourself freedom in that moment. So again, and we move away from right or wrong. Is it right or wrong or this or that? Who cares? What happened was your ego dissolved, you saw through it, and you created freedom for yourself. And that's what we're talking about here. The whole point of our conversations is that. It's like once we see through that the personal self and the ego and its wants and its ideas and its beliefs and how stuck it gets and how caught up we get in thought and our feelings and our insecurities, and that's what's held up here. That's the chaos that we want to find the light in. So that's what you did last night. There was chaos brewing and you just stepped away. So I think that's pretty wonderful.
It was, but it can't happen too often, or we're going to have people driving on the wrong side of the road and all sorts of things. Oh, Jem said it was right. Yeah, because you wouldn't shut up. But no, it was really amazing. And I feel like it's like a power. It's like a superpower, and that I've never really experienced before. And to be honest, that is really the only person that I would have those types of arguments with. But I know that I never need to have them again, because I'm just going to say, yeah, you're right. I've just got to be really convincing.
And I love what you said about a superpower, because, you know, this is what we're talking about here. Understanding thought is a superpower. Not being a victim to your own thinking is a superpower. You know, it really is. Like everybody else is running around believing what their minds are telling them, believing what's going on in their heads, operating from a place of I'm right and everyone else is wrong, and really kind of creating a lot of misery for themselves. And to actually see thought as neutral, to see it as, you know, pretty much arbitrary most of the time, really creates such a sense of freedom and peace in our lives. And what could be a better superpower than feeling peaceful and having freedom? So yeah, I love that, Gem. It's such a great example.
Oh, thank you. You kind of got me here.
No, you did it.
But thank you. But it's kind of like it flows into every single part of life. And it's like, wow, it feels like almost my experiences, it's getting faster, but it's getting more clearer and it's getting in much more, well, it's just enjoyable all the time, to be honest. But it's like let me try and say this properly. So when I was, no, I'm not going to be able to quite get there. Give me a minute to sort of get my
Okay,
words together.
let's go over to Muggsy and you can kind of formulate it while that's happening. That's fine, darling. Take your time.
Yeah, take your time. I'm a problem solver in nature, and I think, you know, I see some of us. I have friends, I have family, I have Twitter friends that are drawn to chaos. They seem to indulge in it, even though they complain about it. What is it making someone like that be so drawn into chaos? One, and then two, how can they realize that that is painful to themselves as a person? Like how do you get someone out of something like that? That 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 desire to be in chaos, that desire to be in pain, that desire to like want to argue and fight and be in these positions all the time.
I think I'm going to go with the first question, and then you might have to remind me of the second part. But the first part about, you know, why are people drawn to it? Why do they do it? Why do they live like that? Um, I guess a lot of it is conditioning. A lot of it is maybe how the environment that they were brought up in, and that just seems natural to them. We do live like, I mean, I don't watch TV much, but if it comes on and there's like a soap opera or something that I know a lot of the population in the UK watch, and suddenly it'll flash up and it'll be like, oh my god, it's like it's dramatic and like this drama and problems, and it's like people seem to have normalized living in a world full of drama. They don't seem to have found the value of peace. um, I think also there's an element of it where it's almost to feel something. I think for people, we're all after a feeling, and we're generally after a good feeling. You know, everything that is designed in the world is to create a feeling. Everything they want to sell us, they try to sell us via marketing that creates feeling. When we do something and we get a good feeling, we try and repeat it. So feelings are very, very powerful and very, very compelling. And I think for some people, that drama feeling, that adrenaline feeling, is something that they kind of seem to thrive off. Now, what they don't understand is the alternative of a peaceful feeling has just as much juice in it and a lot of joy in it. Um, but they're so caught up in this cycle and this conditioning and this belief system that seems to perpetuate chaos after
Hey,
drama after chaos after drama.
hey, Moles.
Yeah.
I'm getting some DMs and messages that a lot of people can't get on and can't hear us.
Oh,
Yeah, it's weird.
that is really weird. Um,
I'm not
oh,
sure how to resolve that because it's the fourth person that said something.
that's really strange.
Yeah, Twitter Spaces does this once in a while.
If there's
It's
4 people, I reckon we just kill it and start again, and we can just
well, I
if
just don't want
well,
anybody. It's like 4 people like telling us, so there could be more. That's not saying anything.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
is
don't.
there
I've
anyone?
never had that before, and I wouldn't have no. I'm the least techie person in the world, so I'd have absolutely no idea what to do about it.
Can you guys just put up a heart emoji if you can hear me, Moles, or Gems? Heart emoji, heart emoji. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So everybody else cannot hear us? Is it delayed in any way, shape, or form?
No, I think it's a lot of
Okay.
hearts there.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just telling you what I'm being.
Yeah, I have no idea why that would be. Yeah, I don't
There are
know.
love hearts everywhere. I feel loved now. I think we should carry on.
Yeah, no, let's end it. Let's end it with the love.
No.
All right. Good night.
This is chaos. This is chaos. This can't be happening. How do we calm down? No one can hear us, thank God.
I'm really well. They're going to have to listen to the recording because I don't want to end and then get everybody back on because we've got quite a lot of people on.
Yeah.
So I really don't know. It must just be a Twitter bug because it's not set to private. Even if you can do that, I'm not sure. Yeah. So just
Yeah,
tell them to
people
keep
are in
trying.
here now and they can hear us. If people can't, they need to leave, close the app, and then join. There's not a lot we can really do, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Moles.
That's all right, my darling. That's fine. I can't remember what I was saying.
We were talking about people being drawn to chaos and why
Yeah.
we love drama, why we love these just to be like stimulated, I guess.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, it's
and
a bit like a drug, actually, isn't it? If you
it
think about it.
is.
Yeah. Yeah. So that feeling becomes addictive. So they get addicted to the drama, they get addicted to the chaos, and then they perpetuate it and create it over and over again. I know a couple of couples that live like that. It looks horrendous to me, but for them, they stay together. But there's always this constant. There's always something. There's always a drama. They'll go out and there'll be an argument, and it's like, God, that's so like for me, it's so interesting to observe. But again, it's a bit like the fish in water. It's just what they know and how they live. Is that possible to change? Yes, but it's only going to change via them having their own insights and new thought. They need new thought to see things differently. They have to see the potential of something better in a more peaceful life. And I guess as it's like as that adrenaline and that feeling, the chemicals they get from the drama act like a drug. It's almost as if they have to, come off it, detox, but they have to see it as well. They have to see it. They have to see that actually they're creating it. It's not the world doing something to them. If you're living in chaos, that chaos is 100% coming from you. It's a reflection of our being. Now, I'm not talking about if someone's living in a war zone. That's a different thing. There are environmental factors in the world in that way, but that isn't very many people. For most people that we know, it's the correct. You see that they're creating the chaos. You see that they're living in a world of their own making. And what was this? Yeah, I was just going to
I was
ask
just going
what
to mention.
else.
Did Muggsy, what the other part of Muggsy's question?
Yeah, but you carry on, Jem. You carry on. Then
I was just
Muggsy
going to
can come
say,
in.
I spoke to one of my girlfriends about something similar recently, and I've only sort of noticed it about her over the last couple of months. And I've known her for years, but she's always not on edge, but she's always fidgeting, she's always moving around, and she's always has to be with people. And I've not really sort of realized, and I asked her the hard questions. I said, why? She's always a million miles an hour, and it's like as soon as she sits down, after she's finished work and finished everything she's doing, she just fall asleep. It's like she doesn't like her own company. And so I just said this to her the other day. I was like, why you're always so busy? Why you always have to be doing something? It's like, and we did talk about it, and she just said, yeah, I don't like my own company. And it was brilliant for her to sort of say that. And it's very similar to what Muggsy was saying about the drama. It's a different way to kind of fill that void that you think that you've got, to be peaceful and to just sit on your own doing nothing is a really, really beautiful place. But I think a lot of people are scared to go there, and to a lot of people, it can be quite vulnerable, can't it, to just be on your own with your thoughts. A lot of people love distraction. So yeah, I think whether it's drama or being busy, these types of things, they make people feel like they're living, but they're kind of living for something else, and it's always sort of taking away from yourself. But yeah, it was quite an interesting talk with her, and I just thought it was really beautiful of her to say. But it's like when we spoke about in the addictions episode, everyone's behavior is always because of their thinking first. Always.
If I could touch on that a little bit, so I'm older. I'm 50. I remember when I first came to New York City, and the time that I spent doing what I was doing, which was, I worked in restaurants, I worked for other people, and these restaurants were super busy. We stayed up pretty late. We didn't get out until like 2 o'clock in the morning. After that, we would we would go out. We would go out and drink. We would go out and do all sorts of drugs and what have you. Fast forward 4 years later, still doing those things, there was a period of my life where I said, I am always surrounded by someone else, with somebody else. Something is going on. Something's surrounding me. There's always some sort of stimulus. There's always people. There's always dogs and music and other people. And I couldn't sit and be by myself. And I could not. It's what Gem is saying about the friend that she spoke to, is that I was so uncomfortable in silence. And it's completely the opposite of who I am now. And the peace that I have now, and learned, as I got a little older, to just be comfortable with your skin, in your skin, just to be comfortable in your own thoughts, and liking the stupid things that flows in your head without having to like bounce it off of other people, without having to feel or see or touch any other stimulus around you. It changed my life. It changed who I am. I grew up. I became a father, and I'm happy with who I am now, but it started, it started much later in my life, and I would implore people to like be okay in your skin. Try to learn your thoughts. Try to be with your thoughts. It's important.
Yeah, I think it's nothing to be scared of. I think the trouble is many people are scared of their own thinking. Thought can be crazy. Everyone's thinking can be crazy from time to time. We can have thinking that freaks us out, but once you understand the neutrality of thought, and you understand that the impersonal nature of even your own thinking, it becomes something to be far less scared of. You can sit with any thought and be okay when you understand that it's neutral no matter what it's saying. So I think that this is, again, where this understanding can be incredibly helpful, because we're seeing through the illusion of thought. Now, if you really believe everything thought says, and you have to sit with your own thinking, and you're having really shitty, scary thinking, why would you want to sit with that thinking? If it was real, you'd want to run away from it. But what we're showing you here is that thought is an illusion, that it's not true. So then you can sit with it. It can be something that just, I often say, we are the sky, and the thoughts that we have are just the birds flying through the sky. The sky doesn't mind what bird flies through. It just allows it to come and go. That's our thinking. Our thinking is these birds, and they're neutral. They're going to appear and they're going to disappear. And we can just be the sky and observe the whole thing. Just let it be. So it's coming back to this being and this knowing of who we are. It's incredibly helpful in allowing us to enjoy the peace and enjoy the silence. Now, don't get me wrong. Occasionally, I like it to go out and have fun, and it can appear chaotic, and we have a really good time, but I value the peace as well. And it's not a dramatic chaos. It's just sometimes it's just good to go out and dance and run around town and be free. But again, the understanding allows us that as well, because freedom is our nature. Freedom is who we are. For many of us, we've been in a in a world of oppression. Depending on your belief system, the world in the last couple of years has got more oppressive than ever for us in the West. So, for that, it's like we can feel that. We can see that there's something not right in that. And why do we know there's something not right in that? Because we know that we are freedom. We know that we're here to enjoy our life as we choose to enjoy it, as long as we're not harming anybody else. And when someone says, no, you can't live that life, then it's like, it doesn't sit right with us, because we know in our true nature who we are. When you understand that, when you touch that space, it's you cannot be told. So many people in our community will feel that they'll be rebellious, because they're rebellious because we're being confined, we're being constricted, there's something to rebel against. If we had pure freedom and no one was telling us what to do, there would be no need for rebellion. There would be no need for revolution. The need for revolution is here because there are forces that want to tell us how to live our lives and are trying to direct how we should live our lives and moving us away from our innate nature, from our innate creativity, from our innate well-being, and stopping us from trusting our own wisdom. But actually, for many of us, it's woken us up to our wisdom. It's woken us up to the direction that we want to live in, and what kind of world that we want to live in. So for many of us, we're standing up and saying, no, we don't want to live in the way that you want us to live. We want to live how we want to live. We have wisdom. We have intelligence. We know who we are, and we choose to be free. And that is powerful. And that's, again, like when we can step in our power and we can know that and we can be that, then we can come into the world and we can do exactly what we need to do to create that change that we want to see. So again, the understanding doesn't make us passive. We understand peace, we understand our true nature, but we take action where we feel action is necessary to be taken. And again, remember who you are. That's so important. When you find out who you are before thought, you see that anything is possible. And that's another thing that I love, that the infinite creative potential of who we really are.
Well, getting to who we are is the challenge. How do we find who we are?
Great question. It's stripping away of who we are not. It's everything that you think you are is probably who you're not. It's that the identity, it's the belief system, it's the roles you play, it's the stripping away of that. It's not additive, it's subtractive. So that we think we are to get to who we really are. And it's just a glimpse. It can just be a tiny glimpse into our true nature. It can be a glimpse into the truth of thought. It can be a glimpse into the truth of consciousness. It can be a glimpse into the truth of universal mind. That glimpse, that glimmer into something before the you that you think you are, dissolves so much of the untruth of who you are. Okay, so you begin to see yourself differently. So I am not my neurosis. I am not my insecurity. I am not my belief system. I'm not even really a mum or was a wife, or all of these things. They're made up. They're all identities that we subscribe to. So it's in the stripping back of that, and to come to something deeper, to something more true, to the essence, I guess would be the best word I could use, the essence of who we really are. Because in that essence, we see through the illusion, and then we show up differently, and we see through our thinking, and we come back to that freedom, we come to that understanding, we come to that knowing. So
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
So can I ask you this question involving that? When we're all on a journey, right, with life. There are segments of the journey. There are periods of journeys. Like the journey doesn't end, but there's always mini journeys within the bigger journey. Isn't acceptance part of finding out who we are? Because at the end of the day, we can sit here and say, who is Molly? Well, Molly likes to do this, and this. Does she not like this? I don't know. Doesn't it come back to just saying, you know what? I don't like this. I do like this. I don't like this. I am this. I am not this. Because we can go on forever and just say, do I not like this? Or do I like this? Am I who I am here? And we can continue to question ourselves all the time. But when do we decide to put our foot down and just say who we are?
Well, I think what you're looking at from that point of view is the who we are in the realm of the character, of the personality. And that absolutely has its likes and dislikes. What the who we are that I'm talking about, where that peace lives, is before all of that. So I'm not saying not to have likes and dislikes, not to have a character, because we're always going to have that. But what I'm saying is to see through the illusion of it and don't make it fixed. So I might like something for 40 years and then decide I don't like it. Well, I didn't like olives for 45 years and then I decided that I did like them. You know, so there's nothing fixed. Everything is up for change in the realm of the character, and we're absolutely going to have likes and dislikes. But it's what's before that. What's created the likes and dislikes? Who are we before the identity, the character, the personality? That's where this exploration goes, because when we that's a space that when we touch it, that allows the unhelpful things of the character to dissolve more. They tend to fall away, they disintegrate. So the character becomes more in line with who it really is, while still having its wants and its needs and its ideas and its likes and its dislikes and all the things that we have as a personality. They're absolutely fine. And I think it also comes back a little bit to something you said earlier about that some people don't feel comfortable in their own skin. And I think what this exploration does is when you touch that space before who we think we are, and you understand more deeply the character and the personality, you get really comfortable with that. It's not something that you need to escape from. You begin to see the innocence of the character, the innocence of the personality, how it's always going to show up, and it's always going to have thinking, it's always going to have beliefs, it's always going to have opinions, it's always going to live in a world, because that's the nature of the human experience. But we come to something deeper, which allows us to see that the thing that we're searching for outside of ourselves is already who we are. So there's nothing for the character to gain for the true self to be happy, because the true self is innately happy. There's not well-being to be gained in the world, because the true self already has innate well-being. So I'm just talking about, it can seem like there's two different things. It's kind of still the one thing coming into form, but it has the appearance of a separation. I hope, have I explained that okay? Is that clear?
Absolutely. Yep.
Good. Yeah.
One thing it just made me think of actually is, because I can only talk from experience of sort of what I'm going through, but for me it's more of is an uncovering of who I am rather than trying to find it, because I was always trying to do that, and now I know that that was a bit silly because I didn't have to go anywhere, but it was all part of the journey. So now it's kind of just like the old beliefs are sort of falling away. It's almost like I'm questioning everything, every single, like something came up, a situation in my life on the weekend, and I've not dealt with anything like that for about 2 years, and all of these thoughts instantly came back, and I laughed because it was like, oh my god, wow, this is how I used to think. And straight away I was like, okay, you don't need, that is not you. And I know that those thoughts, they might come back again by sort of like a quick, oh, that's what you used to think like, but straight away in the other split second I was like, that is not who you are. These beliefs and these thoughts, they might still be there, but they become untrue. So it kind of all falls away. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that does. And what I really want to point to here, because it can sound, oh yeah, this is all lovely what you're pointing to, but the actual byproduct of this understanding and this conversation and what we're pointing to here is better mental health. Anxiety gets better, depression gets better, the mind clears up. There's something about seeing what we're pointing to that has a deeply healing effect on our minds. So again, we're not just pointing to this because it's a lovely conversation, which it is. We're pointing to it because it actually makes such a difference in people's lives. It makes a difference in your life, even if you're not suffering from mental health issues, because to see that everything's made of thought is a wonderful thing to see and incredibly helpful. But if you have mental health issues and you look in this direction and you do the work within the 3 principles, you will begin to see that, oh wow, my mind is actually getting better. My anxiety is going away, my depression is going away, and that's the point of this. Again, it's not just about a lovely conversation. I want to make that really clear. It's fundamentally changes lives. It transforms people's minds, and that's what's so wonderful. And it's because we're not going into the content of the mind. We're not getting into the past. We're not getting into the story. We're not getting into the chaos of the mind. We're pointing to something before it. And that pointing to something before it that created the mind allows the mind to settle. It allows the mind to get peaceful. For many people that come on the calls or listen to our podcasts, they say that, oh, wow, by the time I finished listening, I felt much more peaceful. When I work with someone privately at the end of the call, they always say, wow, I feel like a new person. I feel completely different. My mind has settled. That's what we're pointing to here. This is the importance of this conversation. This is the importance of this understanding. So yeah, we haven't really touched on that tonight. That's why I just wanted to make that really clear, that it really does have there's so many benefits from looking in this direction.
So in our journey through life, we have a lot of relationships, whether it's boyfriend, girlfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, boyfriend, mother, father. It's all relationships, and we go through it, and we could have like an amazing relationship with someone, and then down the road, you could actually hate each other. So how do we get over pain, hurt, and learn to forgive? Because that's all part of chaos too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I never understand the hate thing. For me personally, I guess I've just always managed to remain really good friends and still love the people that I've been in relationships with, even when they've ended. So it's never really made sense to me, because if you love someone, where does that love go? You know, that was before I found the principles. I was like, well, no, the love has to still be there. There's just been a change in the relationship. So if we can keep the fundamental base of love, then that relationship can change and there can still be contact and communication and a friendship. But unfortunately, this is a whole nother topic. You know, relationships is a really interesting thing to look at. What happens is that there's a projection. So what happens in most breakdowns of relationships is one person projects their well-being and their happiness onto the other person. When the other person stops, what in their eyes stops providing that happiness, because that person doesn't feel happy anymore, they blame the other person. Okay, and then we start this kind of backwards and forwards of victim and blame and finger pointing and because I don't feel happy anymore, that's your fault. Okay, that's really incredibly unhealthy in a relationship, because it leads to a lot of insecurity, a lot of unhelpful feelings, and what happens is the other person then retaliates because egos get in control, and the other ego will come back, well, I'm not happy because of you, and then it's very, very difficult for people to kind of find the love, because it gets so covered by the ego and the ideas and the beliefs that people aren't getting what they want. And actually, what all that's happening there is that in a relationship, if you can see that your happiness comes from you and the other person can see that their happiness comes from them, when you go into a low state of mind, you don't project it onto the other person. You see, oh, that's me. I must have gone down in the basement of my thinking. Okay, I don't need to project that onto the other person. They're still the same person. They're probably still wonderful. My vision is clouded and I'm not seeing that. I'm just going to not say anything. I'm just going to step back and allow my vision to clear. Allow my loving eyes to come back, because at some point they will, and I'll look back at that person and I'll go, actually, they're all right. I really love them. God, what was I thinking? And then that relationship doesn't have to die or to break up because of one person's thinking. It becomes a very, very healthy relationship where people aren't projecting their well-being and their happiness onto the other. Now, you can see in the worst kind of relationships and the really bad breakups that both have gone into victim. Both are blaming the other for their unhappiness. Now, you can see through this understanding and what I've taught you over the weeks and what we've talked about tonight, that the only place that that's going to come from is ego, and that there are no winners in ego, but the ego always wants to win. So what's going to happen there? It's just the fight's going to get nastier and nastier and nastier, which it often does. So you really do need two people that have an understanding or live from a higher level of consciousness that see this, that because then what happens is that they don't project it onto another person. So even if, say, the relationship does break, these two high consciousness people just decide not to be together anymore, they're not going to blame the other person. They can still be best friends. They can still have a great friendship, because they've not gone into that basement of victimhood and thought and nastiness and ego and projected that all onto the other person. So for me, I love working with relationships. One of my favourite things to do is actually to sit with a couple and work through these issues with them, because a relationship that looks like it's on its last legs can actually recover. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's just having an amicable breakup. But often you see that actually the relationship gets better. So yeah, relationships are a really interesting topic, because you've got two thought systems at play. But if those two thought systems understand they're only experiencing thought, then that's a great relationship. If those two thought systems are completely insecure and project onto the other one, then that's going to probably not end very well. Does that answer your question, Muggsy?
Yeah, it does, of course. It does. And I think, it comes back to, people's current state of mind and how hard it is for them to say to their own ego, and to grab hold of it and say to themselves, there are bigger things. We're fighting about silly things, or we're arguing about things that just don't even matter. And it just goes back to like, once you fall into like this chaos of like fighting, arguing, or trying to validate yourself to the other person. And Gems brought this specific situation up. She is arguing or trying to prove her point to a gentleman that seems to think that he's always right. In that relationship, there is so many of those relationships in our lives that it shouldn't be that way, right? So, because it's like we don't even hear what the other person is saying. We don't even see the words. We don't. It doesn't even register in our head when we're in this chaotic argument, or I have to be right. I have to validate myself. And literally you're arguing in front of the mirror because the other person is doing the same thing. And that's where I feel like, everything else goes to shit, because we tend to forget why we started the journey with someone in the first place. And this is with every relationship.
Relationships are one of our biggest teachers. We get to see ourselves in the other. We get to have that mirror pointed up. As you said, it's a reflection. The other thing that I want to say is, if you have two people that understand this system, they're not always going to be in a high state of consciousness. One is always going to dip into some low mood and some low thinking. But if the other one understands this and doesn't take it personally, again, you have a great relationship, because you can say, oh, that's not personal. That's not about me. They're just in their low mood. They're just in their low thinking. They'll bounce back, and we'll kind of find our equilibrium again. So, yeah, I think that's the beauty of understanding this in any relationship. Is it's just not when the other one's being shitty, it's just not personal. So understanding that really is helpful, to see the impersonal nature of somebody else's mood and behavior actually end conflict. You only get into conflict with somebody when you're taking them personally. Yeah. So again, in a relationship, it's not personal. Even if that person's saying to you, this is your fault, I feel like this, it's not your fault. That's them. That's their thought system. That's them creating their mood in the moment. That's their low state of mind. So when you see that again, you're elevated. You see it differently. So there's always the potential for learning, and then that person comes out of that low state of mind, and they'll probably just go, oh God, I really dipped in my thinking. I was in a really low state of mind. And you'll go, oh yeah. And that's the end of it. It doesn't have to be a discussion about the state of a relationship, because the relationship's fundamentally healthy underneath both of your thinking. So again, there's a book for anybody that's interested in this side of what we teach. There's a book called The Relationship Handbook, and it's by George and Linda Pransky, and it teaches the 3 principles, and it talks about it within relationships, and it's amazing. And it talks to what I'm teaching now, which is that just don't take it personally, and your relationship will be fine. Just see the well-being underneath the thinking in the other. Just see the love, the light in the chaos. Love. It's always going to come back to love. Touch that space, and then your relationship will find its way. But if you project and you play the victim, it's not going to. You're just going to go down a road of really unhealthy thinking, unhealthy feelings, and you're going to end up breaking up because you're pointing at the other person for your happiness. Now, we're always going to come across that in a relationship. We're always going to do that because we're going to have low states of mind. But when you catch yourself, you go, oh, I was doing that thing again. It's done. You're back in well-being. You're back in mental health. That's what we're always looking for. We're searching for that good feeling, that feeling of well-being, that feeling of mental health, that feeling of peace. So when you touch that, then you know that you're in a good place. If you're feeling like shit, your thinking is off. You're looking in the wrong direction for your well-being.
That was brilliant, Molls, but we did a brilliant episode about this. It was episode 16. So anyone that wants to listen more to that is relationships, relating, and love. And yeah, some really amazing bits that I was remembering from that one as well. But there's a quote somewhere, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it says a lot of relationships are built from people wanting to confirm each other's identity. So they've made up this person, and then if the other person doesn't sort of prove to them and show them that they are that person, then there's problems. So sort of knowing who you are in a relationship is brilliant. And I think that's why a lot of people are just stay together, because they think it gives them, if that's what you're supposed to do, when in actuality it's probably making sort of more unhappy.
Yeah, Jem, we've got a whole podcast on relationships in a few weeks, so we can really dig into that subject then, which will be great. For now, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. Part 2 of this podcast will be available next week, and we look forward to you all joining us then. Thank you, everyone.